Judge Robert Busheld's lips pressed together in anger as Jeff Landry, his son-in-law, sat smiling contentedly. Across the table from Jeff sat Angel Jelly Landry, Jeff's disgusting, vicious daughter. And next to the little red-haired harlot sat Arabella Belly Hall, Jelly's girlfriend. Times they're changing. And not for the better, Mr. Dillon, Robert thought. There was a time when such relationships were so scandalous, so repugnant to polite society, that no woman would admit to being in one. Now, however, in this permissive and decadent culture, such relationships were actually encouraged. Robert knew he had better not voice his opinion. After marrying Donna, Robert and Deborah's daughter, Jeff had established himself as a man of his own principles. He did not bow to Judge Robert Busheld's stance, nor to Deborah's formidable character. When he thought he was right, Jeff Landry stood his ground. Donna fell in love with Cajun culture, Cajun food, the rich heritage of the people, and the lush landscapes. After receiving her high school diploma, Donna Busheld decided to attend not the University of Walchester, but the University of Louisiana at DeHardy. Upon graduation after 7 years of study, Donna took a job with Tri-Carter, an oil field service company. I never should have let her go to that damned Mardi Gras, Robert thought as Jeff carried his empty plate and the plates of his daughter and her friend into the kitchen where a smiling Daisy, their maid, stood. A few months after Donna took the job at Tri-Carter, she met 34-year-old Jeff Landry when DeGard Office Equipment Leasing and Maintenance sent Jeff out to repair Tri-Carter's ancient copier. Robert made inquiries about the man and didn't like the fact that Jeff Landry was divorced and had an 11-year-old daughter. His wife was cheating on him, that's why they divorced, Donna explained when Robert voiced his concerns about his daughter's connection to the older Jeff. Despite his misgivings and Deborah's strong dislike of Jeffrey Andrew Landry, Donna and Jeff married. Their dislike for Jeff softened, albeit slightly, when Donna and Jeff suddenly left DeGard, Louisiana, and moved to Commonstead, New Jersey. Donna said she was suddenly homesick. Jeff offered no opinion or explanation. Robert and Deborah met Jelly, Jeff's daughter. She spent summers with her father and every other Thanksgiving and Christmas with Jeff and Donna. Despite her warm, humble, friendly personality, the red-haired pixie did not take a liking to Deborah and Robert. On the first Thanksgiving, as soon as Jeff placed Jelly's plate in front of her daughter, Deborah announced to the assembled family that since it was Jeff's first Thanksgiving with them, he would be doing the dishes. "This is fine china. It belonged to my grandmother and must be hand-washed," Deborah adamantly stated. Jeff looked at the cheerful faces of Robert, Donna's two brothers Bobby and Richard, Robert's mother, Genevieve Bushold, Deborah's two sisters and their husbands. Straightening up, Jeff took his daughter's hand and helped her up from her seat. "Donna, we're leaving. Are you coming?" Jeff said, leaving no room for argument. "Why, Mom?" Donna snorted, hurrying after her husband. "Well," Deborah replied. Susan, Bobby's wife, and Tricia, Richard's wife, looked over at each other. Both women silently applauded the way Jeff had handled the situation. Later, as the men sat in the living room watching soccer, Susan confided to Tricia that if Deborah had done that little trick, she would have had a lot less of the Chinese food her grandmother treasured. From that day on, the rare occasions that Jeff Landry came to the Bushold home, Deborah and Robert treated their son-in-law with cold politeness. Donna had somehow convinced Jeff that since this was the first Thanksgiving his daughter and her friend were living in Commonstead, New Jersey, they should try to show Jelly and Belly a nice traditional Thanksgiving dinner. If the cold atmosphere bothered Jeff, he didn't react in any way. If the awkward silence bothered Jeff, Jelly, or Belly, they didn't show it in any way. All three of them sat at the large, decades-old wooden table and ate a very good meal. Deborah's lips tightened unhappily as she heard Jeff complimenting Daisy and thanking the woman for the delicious food. Didn't the buffoon realize he should be thanking the hostess? Even if Deborah didn't prepare the food, she provided it. Therefore, one should thank the hostess, not the paid servant. After that, the 15 guests, Deborah and Robert, retired to the living room while Daisy and Pet, Daisy's sister, brewed coffee and cut pumpkin pies. During dinner, Jelly, Angel Landry, blabbed that she was pregnant. "Wonderful, just wonderful. Another worthless urchin siphoning off our tax dollars for the rest of eternity," Robert thought dejectedly. Now in the living room, Susan politely asked Jelly what she planned to name the baby. Robert mentally put a black check mark in Susan's ledger. Susan had to ask if Jelly planned to abort the bastard fetus. Or adopt, of course, Robert muttered, but immediately faltered when Jeff threw him a stern look. We don't know, Jelly said, giving her blonde friend a loving look. We were thinking Peyton, if it's a boy. You know, Peyton Jeffrey Landry Hall, Belly said. And Andrea if it's going to be a girl, Jelly said. Andrea Michelle Landry Hall. Michelle is Jelly's mother's name, Jeff explained to the crowd. Well, when Bobby and I have a baby, Susan said. If it's a boy, I won't have a choice. Robert Stephen III, Bobby said smugly. And if it's a girl, Denise. Denise Elizabeth Bushold, Susan said. See, Susan's older sister? Denise Elizabeth Prescott died when Susan was a baby, Bobby explained, though no one demanded an explanation. What a tragedy, Deborah said without the slightest emotion in her voice. I like the name Carter if it's a boy, Donna suggested, and Willa if it's going to be a girl. Jelly and Belly looked at each other, silently expressing their opinions on the names. Robert noticed the murderous look Jeff gave Donna. Donna noticed Jeff's look too and recoiled from her husband. You bitch! An unbelievable goddamn bitch, Jeff growled, his voice full of venom. Hey now, Bobby said, rising to his feet. How I wish you would, Jeff growled, also rising to his feet and clenching his fists. Bobby was 6 inches and 50 pounds. Even after 4 glasses of his father's oak leaf whiskey, Bobby was smart enough to realize he stood little chance against his sister's little Cajun, especially since the latter looked so indignant at this point. Daddy? Jelly asked, noticing the tension in the room. That bitch, that little slut wants you to name my grandson after her lover, Jeff growled, glaring hatefully at his wife. The women in the room gasped at the man's vulgarity and his revelations. Donna burst into tears. Robert rose from his comfortable chair, determined to take control of the situation. Don't come home. Do you hear me? I don't want to see you. I don't want you anywhere near me. Do you hear me? Jeff ordered, heading for the door. Daddy, wait. We need to get our coats, Jelly called out, following her father. I'll get them, Belly offered. Belly dashed past the bulky Robert Bushold and rushed into the guest room. She quickly found her coat, Jelly's coat, and Mr. Jeff's coat. She grabbed their purses and ran back to the front door of the house. As she passed Donna, Belly saw a wrinkled woman, a stricken woman. She didn't notice the usually haughty Miss Donna, who smirked as she looked at her and Jelly. Belly wondered why she had no compassion for the real Donna Landry. Thanks, sweet booger, Jeff said, calling Belly by the nickname he'd given her when Jelly had introduced her best friend to her daddy. I'll give you a ride to the apartment, Jeff said as they climbed into his dark green 2016 Dodge Ram 3500 mega cab pickup truck. Don't you need any help? Jelly asked. I guess. I probably need a ton of help. What can you two do? Nothing, Jeff replied. Daddy, I'm so sorry, Jelly said. I know you loved her. You said it right, sweet bunny, Jeff sighed. Loved her. Past tense. The trio fell silent as Jeff drove through the eerily quiet streets of Commonstead, New Jersey. Everyone seemed to be at home enjoying a quiet dinner with family, friends, and loved ones. Jeff turned down a small dead-end street and pulled up to an apartment complex. Past tense. When I found out about her little affair with Big Bill Carter, God, it took everything I had not to kill her, Jeff said as he put the car in the parking lot. Minnie, Mrs. Carter, Big Bill's wife, put an end to it before I could. Then she said, let's move back to New Jersey. Belly and Jelly waited for Jeff to continue his story. The stove was blowing hard and they didn't want to get out of the truck into the brutal wind. I thought, sure, why not? I mean, I don't have all the facts. Did he coerce her? Did he threaten her? I really thought I'd put it all behind me, put it in the past where it belonged. But what exactly? Jeff tapped the steering wheel. You want you to name my grandson, my precious grandson, after that worthless lowlife son of a bitch? Belly and Jelly jumped up as Jeff let out an anguished cry. He pounded his fists on the steering wheel again. Finally, he sighed and pressed the electronic door locks, unlocking the truck. Bye, Daddy. I love you, Jelly said and kissed her father gently on the cheek. Bye, Mr. Jeff. I love you, Belly said, kissing the man on the cheek as well. Why do you have such a stupid big truck? Jelly complained, climbing out of her truck in reverse. I mean, he's a man. They think a big truck says they have something big or something, Belly told Jelly. Jeff smiled as he saw the cheeky grin of his daughter's girlfriend before she slammed the truck door shut. He watched the two girls run up the metal steps to their apartment. He honked slightly as they entered their small apartment on the third floor. The three-bedroom house he and Donna had taken off the market, Jeff entered and looked around. Going from room to room, Jeff realized with horror that there was nothing here that he needed. Other than clothes and tools, there was nothing here that belonged to him alone. In the 5, almost 6 years of their marriage, Donna had squandered almost everything Jeff owned. "Oh shit, that almost makes everything easier," Jeff muttered. Going into their joint checking account, Jeff divided it 50-50, withdrawing the money electronically. He did the same with 2 savings accounts. One was joint, and the other was an account they had opened in hopes of buying a house. Each pay period they paid their bills, and 10% of the remaining balance went into the house account. Jeff then opened a link to another bank. After transferring the funds he had just embezzled, Jeff opened an account in Jelly's name and deposited the money into it. He used his daughter's address and cell phone number, and used Michelle Bordelon's initials and date of birth as the password. After gathering his clothes and tools, Jeff loaded up his truck and drove to the Hideaway Inn. He grinned when the board clerk informed him that there were free movies in the room. In the room, Jeff called his daughter and told her that she had a new bank account and that she should receive the paperwork, most likely on Monday or Tuesday of next week. She didn't own the account and could use it as she pleased. She just had to make sure Judge Robert Bushell couldn't somehow get his paws on it. "I'll pay all the taxes and other fees on it," Jeff promised his daughter. While he was talking to Jelly, Jeff noticed that he had received several text messages and 3 voicemails from Donna. Nodding his head, Jeff remembered how Deborah had insisted that everyone turn off their cell phones during Thanksgiving dinner. Of course, that edict didn't apply to Robert, Bobby, or Richard. It only applied to those who interfered, those who were outsiders. "I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking," and other apologies seemed the norm to Donna. Jeff deleted messages and voicemails without listening to them. He had no desire to listen to another lie and excuse from his wife. Jeff sent a message to Donna's cell phone, letting her know she could go home. He wasn't home. He then blocked Donna's number, her mother's number, her father's number, and the numbers of her 2 asshole brothers. He turned on the TV and flipped through a selection of videos. Friday morning, Jeff enjoyed the continental breakfast the motel provided, and then used the motel's Wi-Fi to search for a lawyer. Ronald O'Donnell was on site. He hadn't taken a 4-day weekend. "Yeah, helps being an only child with really shitty parents," Ronald joked. "Wife doesn't have a family?" Jeff asked, noticing the large wedding ring on the ring finger of Ronald's left hand. "The husband has one. No, they disowned him for being gay," said Ronald. "Oh," Jeff said and presented Ronald with all the information he had, as well as the prenuptial agreement that Judge Robert Bushell had insisted on. "Should have seen the original," Jeff smirked. "Gave Donna everything if I ever farted wrong once." "Familiar with Judge Robert Stephen Bushell? I can imagine," Ronald said. "Unfortunately, you continued to cohabit with Mrs. Landry, even after you learned of her infidelity. I assume you also continued to enjoy your companionship with her?" "Enjoyed is probably too strong a word," Jeff smirked as his cell phone rang. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's my boss." Patrick Turner apologized for calling Jeff at a time when Jeff was supposed to be on a 4-day weekend. Patrick had a client, a long-time customer, who was having trouble with an older model color copier. Patrick promised a double fee if Jeff could get this monstrosity working properly. "I told him it's a minimum of 3 hours. He's desperate," Patrick advised. "Give me an hour. I'm right in the middle of things," Jeff said. "Hell, drop your load and get to Joe's office ASAP," Patrick ordered, smirking. "Will do, boss," Jeff said. "Do you want me to give her my regards?" "No, find out if she has a sister," Patrick said, and ended the call. Using the phone, Jeff transferred money from his new account to pay Ronald's fee. Ronald promised to file the paperwork with the Suladu County Clerk of Court's office by the end of the day. He shrugged when Jeff reminded him again that Donna's father was Judge Robert Bushell. The Sulad County Clerk of Court must have been ordered to take his time processing the papers filed by Jeff Landry or any attorney acting on his behalf. Smirking, Ronald simply filed the same papers in New Jersey State Court, bypassing Sulad County. The smirk disappeared from the court clerk's face when a filing notice flashed on her computer screen a minute later. Next, Judge Bushell tried to overpower Jeff and his attorney. Thanks to her father's connections, Donna had hired the law firm of Cooper, Farnsworth, Wells, and associates. Ronald grinned as he and Jeff sat at the large conference table across from James Farnsworth and the three junior partners. New Jersey is a no-fault state. Jeff was suing over irreconcilable differences, not adultery, although filing a lawsuit and proving adultery would have provided Jeff with a more favorable outcome. So the four attorneys representing Donna Landry just spun in place, smacking their lips and making noises. There was cheerful Christmas music coming from upstairs. There was a small plastic Christmas tree in the corner of the conference room, and underneath it were presents in smart wrappers. Jeff was sure they were just empty boxes wrapped in brightly colored holiday wrapping paper. When James Farnsworth finally fell silent, Ronald and Jeff stood up. James's piggy eyes widened in surprise as Ronald and Jeff opened the conference room door. "Thanks for the coffee," was all Ronald said as they left the room. Jeff felt a prick of conscience as he heard Donna burst into tears. The door closed with a click, muffling her sobs. He followed Ronald to the elevator. "Between us?" Ronald sighed heavily as the elevator doors slammed shut. "I hate divorces. Yeah, they pay the bills, but..." Being a judge, Robert Busheld had very quickly scheduled a hearing before Judge Shirley Howard. Disregarding Ronald's objections, Judge Howard scheduled no less than 8 counseling sessions with a certified marriage counselor. Jeff and Ronald shrugged as they left the courtroom. A pathetic Christmas tree stood in the corner of the hallway. Looking at the plastic symbol of the jolly holiday, Jeff wondered how old the tree was. He was willing to bet the tree had been purchased decades ago. Over the years, the metal trunk and the grooves that attached the branches to the metal trunk had gradually deteriorated. Even the ornaments seemed old and dull. "Look, do your 8 lessons, try not to piss anyone off, and we'll see," Ronald sighed as they waited for the elevator. "You know what? I'll take the stairs," Jeff decided, as Donna and her troupe of lawyers stepped out into the hallway. Dr. Roberta Stitwell was a woman in her early 40s. She wore no makeup and was dressed in sloppy clothes. Her long graying brown hair was gathered in a severe bun, and her glasses were constantly slipping off the tip of her nose. Her waiting room was devoid of any glamour, with uncomfortable hard plastic chairs as seats. Even with cheerful Christmas music playing overhead, there was no visual reminder of the season in Dr. Stitwell's waiting room. Dr. Stitwell's office was no better. There were no paintings on the walls, and the walls themselves were a faded white. Her desk was quite serviceable, brown in color, and her chairs were stiff, wooden. When Jeff picked up one of the chairs and set it as far away from the other as possible, her eyes strained. "Wow, what an unattractive office you have," Jeff said after Dr. Stitwell finished listing her credentials. "I put the chairs in here on purpose, Jeff," Roberta snapped back. "I'm sure you did," Jeff agreed. "And since you insist we address you as Dr. Stitwell, my name is Mr. Landry." Nah. "So you think you're going to play hardball with me, Jeff?" Roberta grinned. Jeff's friendly smile irritated the woman. Trying to regain control of the session, Roberta turned to Donna and asked what she hoped to get out of the session. Jeff, please put your phone away," Roberta demanded before Donna could speak. "Okay, Roberta," Jeff agreed easily. "Dr. Stitwell," the woman snapped back. "Oh, then I'm Mr. Landry," Jeff repeated. "But I'm recording these sessions. When we go before Judge Howard, I want proof that I actually participated, that I complied with all reasonable requests." "You can't record these sessions," Roberta shrilled. "Oh, crap. When are you going to pay me $210 an hour? Jesus, Donna. Did you really go out of your way to find the most expensive consultant in Commonstead? But when are you going to pay me?" "Then you'll tell me if I can record these sessions or not," Jeff said firmly. He bestowed the apoplectic woman with another benevolent smile. Donna waited until the showdown between her husband and the doctor was over. "Besides, who knows? Maybe your words will prove so inspiring, so helpful, that I'll want to listen to them over and over again," Jeff offered, smiling broadly. "Go ahead, Donna," Roberta snorted, conceding to Jeff Landry in this confrontation. For the next 30 minutes, Donna, snorting and sobbing, told her side of the story. She detailed that she hoped she and Jeff, the absolute love of her life, had a chance to find love for each other again. "After all, we're expecting our first grandchild," Donna snorted. "Jeff, Mr. Landry?" Roberta asked as Donna blew her nose into the very cheap napkin Roberta had provided. "Yes, Roberta? Dr. Stitwell?" Jeff asked. "Your goals?" Roberta snapped back, annoyed that Jeff had picked up on her deliberate use of his name. To divorce this willfully unfaithful woman, Jeff said. And? Roberta said, blushing with anger as Jeff sat up and looked at her in silence. And? Jeff asked. Don't you have anything else to add? Commanded Roberta. Hmm? Oh, okay, said Jeff. Your waiting room sucks. Your office is even worse. There's no warmth, no hospitality in either room. There's no thought of making your customers feel at ease, comfortable. I meant, Roberta snorted. What about when someone meets you for the first time? Instead of greeting them, making contact, you try to stun them, to win them over by listing all your degrees and the many dissertations you've published. And so, after intimidating your clients into believing you are some kind of expert, an authority, you force them to approach you by your bought and paid for title. Again, instead of establishing some kind of rapport, empathy, Jeff continued to attack. Gee, Mr. Landry, that will be enough, Roberta shrilled. And let's talk about you personally, Jeff continued. Jesus Christ, have you ever heard of makeup? I'm not telling you to put on makeup like a whore, but God Almighty, put a little effort into it. A little lipstick under your eyes to get those circles out. A little foundation, okay? In your case, a lot, just even out that blotchy skin. Remember, we have to look at you. A little eyeliner, some mascara. Try to do something about those flat, dirty brown eyes of yours. Mr. Landry, that's more than enough, Roberta continued. And that hair. You know, my sister used to put her hair up in a bun or braid it into a French braid when it needed to be washed, but she didn't have time. But if you pull that bundle tighter, your eyes will turn Asian, I swear, Jeff continued. And let's talk about clothes. Did you purposely go out and look for the most unflattering clothes you could find? That's a great job. Honestly, I didn't know they still made leisure suits out of polyester. Oh, they do. For women, they're not called leisure suits, they're called pantsuits. But if you dress to look serious, professional, you have failed miserably. If anything, you look like a clown. Go away, leave my office immediately, Roberta growled. And that's exactly why I recorded this session. You're making me leave the session 10 minutes early, Jeff smiled, rising to his feet. Oh my God, Roberta said bitterly as the door slammed quietly behind Jeff. Are you sure you want to stay married to this man? Donna answered nothing, rising to her feet. She left the office and was in the room just in time to see the elevator door slam shut and Jeff left standing in the small box. At the next session, Jeff asked Dr. Stitwell if she was married. She refused to answer and Jeff did a quick search on his cell phone, although Roberta demanded that he put the phone away. The answer is no, you're not married. And you've never been married, Jeff read aloud. And your dissertation on living in an asexual society? That doesn't inspire confidence that you know anything about relationships. Jeff turned to Donna. Donna waited with her head down. Jeff shook his head sadly. Again, Donna, why did you choose this woman? I mean, is this some kind of joke? Jeff addressed Donna directly for the first time since the fateful Thanksgiving dinner at her parents' house. I have the right to, Roberta snorted. You have? Really? Jeff turned to the doctor. Tell me, Dr. Stitwell, how many of your clients manage to salvage a damaged relationship after a visit to you? I have no right to, Roberta said. Less than 12%, Jeff answered for her. 11.6 according to Suladu County records. Are you done? Roberta growled. Yes, I was finished long before I got here last week, but I guess the courts need proof of that. Jeff smiled his annoying smile. At the end of the session, Jeff made Dr. Stitwell's blood boil as he wished her a Merry Christmas. His smirk as he met her hate-filled gaze made the woman even angrier. On a cold Christmas morning, Donna must have used Daisy's cell phone. Jeff stoically listened to the voicemail message in which Donna tearfully wished him a Merry Christmas and professed her boundless love for him. He then deleted the message. Jelly's potbelly was now very noticeable. Jeff hugged her and kissed his daughter on the top of her head, wishing her a Merry Christmas. He then hugged Belly and wished her a Merry Christmas as well. The Christmas Mass at St. John the Baptist Catholic Church was filled to capacity. The priest was a young Vietnamese man who seemed to genuinely love his vocation, his profession. He promised the celebrants that he would be quick. A cup of hot cocoa awaited him in the parish. And don't worry if it has a little Iron Barrel whiskey in it, okay? He said, eliciting a few understanding chuckles from the parishioners. Back at their apartment, Jeff, Jelly, and Belly were unwrapping Christmas presents for each other. Jeff looked up when Belly quietly asked him if he missed Miss Donna. I do. No, Belly, Jeff replied thickly. Once that trust was broken, was it? I was just waiting for the next Big Bill Carter to show up and take her away. At the third session, scheduled for Tuesday, January 4th, Jeff let Donna vent her frustration. He let Dr. Stitwell lead the session, politely answering Dr. Stitwell's questions, but not elaborating on his answers unless asked. But, Mr. Landry, you knew about Donna's infidelity, but you continued your relationship with her, Dr. Stitwell asked, losing patience with this tedious man. Well, Dr. Stitwell, before I continue, can I ask Donna one question? Jeff said, smirking at the woman's sudden outburst of anger. Yes, of course, the woman agreed. Donna, why did you end your affair with Big Bill? Jeff asked. I realized it was wrong, Donna replied, stammering. I realized that I was a married woman, married to the man of my dreams, and no amount of money and power was going to get me through Big Bill Carter. He was just a physical presence, you know. But in the end, I decided that as exciting as it wasn't worth losing you. Jeff, Mr. Landry, who are you calling? Roberta shrieked. Hello, Mrs. Carter? Jeff asked into his cell phone. Roberta didn't miss Donna's sigh or the sudden loss of color. Turning her head, she stared at the horrified customer, drawing her attention away from Jeff Landry. Mr. Landry, Roberta said, still looking at Donna. I'm sorry, yes ma'am, Minnie, Jeff smiled. So, Minnie, I'm going to put you on speakerphone, okay? Great, Minnie Carter's cheerful voice came from the speaker. Hi, Donna, how are you doing? Mr. Landry, turn that off. Immediately, Dr. Stitwell muttered, getting up from her wobbly chair. So, Minnie, why did Donna end the affair with your husband? Jeff asked, looking with hard eyes directly at the defeated Donna Landry. Because she knew I would kill her if she didn't, Minnie replied without hesitation in her voice. Huh? Could you please elaborate? Jeff asked, getting up and moving the phone away from Roberta. Yes, I walked in on her and my husband squirming like little animals on his Italian leather couch when I put a huge butcher knife to her throat. Minnie giggled. Mr. Landry, I said turn it off, Roberta demanded, trying to reach for her cell phone. Yes, she still has a scar from where you cut her, Jeff said, stretching his arm forward so the phone wouldn't reach Roberta. Turn it off, Donna sobbed. Just turn it off. The little tramp emptied her bladder and bowels all over the couch, Minnie giggled, happily retelling the story. I think Bill was more upset about losing the couch than his little affair. Oh, hi, Minnie. Let me send you a picture, Jeff said, turning away from Roberta. By the way, thanks for the pictures you sent me. They might come in handy, who knows? Ha, Minnie said. Who's that, Jeff? That's Donna and her father, Jeff said. Notice the resemblance? Ha, can you say Electrocomplex? Minnie agreed. Looks just like Big Bill, doesn't it? You win, Donna sobbed, snuggling up to him. Okay, you win. So, Roberta, Dr. Stitwell, now that we've established that Donna is a liar, Jeff said, looking at the puffing consultant. Out! I want you out of this office immediately, Roberta shouted in anger. Judge Shirley Howard was not amused as she read Dr. Roberta Stitwell's report. Despite Judge Bushold's thinly veiled threats, Shirley signed the papers confirming Jeff and Donna Landry's divorce. Reading the file that Shirley had delivered by courier to his office, Robert bit the inside of his cheek. Wrinkling his bleeding cheek in pain, Judge Robert Bushold cursed Jeff Landry again. Donna, his beauty, looked haggard and defeated. She'd lost 20 pounds she couldn't afford to lose since that Thanksgiving dinner. And God only knows why you ever married that little coon-ass, Robert muttered, tossing the papers onto the cluttered desk. Taking out his cell phone, Robert dialed Patrick Turner's number. He informed Patrick that it would be in his best interest to make sure Jeff Landry lost his job, and then he wouldn't be able to come back and demand child support from Donna. Yeah? Give Bushold a break, Patrick laughed. Like I'm going to lose my best employee just because your feelings were hurt. You know, I don't think you can afford to turn against me, Turner, Robert snorted. What the hell? Patrick laughed. It would be a real shame if you lost points in the district, Turner, Robert threatened. Oh, shit. Did I forget to tell you? You're being recorded. Damn. Patrick grinned. You, you can't use it's unacceptable, Robert muttered. Who says it can be used in court? I just accidentally gave it to a certain reporter from Suladu Crier that we both know, Patrick stated. Geez, Robert S. Buchold, you're just a dumbass, Patrick said to himself that evening as he saw a police tail trailing behind him. At the next corner, a patrol car flashed its headlights. Patrick pulled to the curb and pulled out his cell phone. A smirking policeman approached the driver's window. Good evening, Sergeant Parnell, Patrick said affably. Why was I pulled over? License and registration, Sergeant Parnell barked. Of course, of course. Sergeant Parnell, I'm reaching into the glove compartment to get my car papers, Patrick said and reached for the passenger side of his car. I'll be right back, Sergeant Parnell barked, roughly snatching the documents out of Patrick's hands. And then Sergeant Parnell took his time getting into his patrol car. When he finally got tired of keeping Patrick Turner waiting, he got out of the warm patrol car again and approached Patrick's vehicle. He frowned when he saw Patrick talking on his cell phone. So do you think your lawyer can do anything for you? Sergeant Parnell asked himself, frowning. There he is, Patrick said, lowering the driver's window again. Sir, hang up the phone and get out of the car, Sergeant Parnell barked. Did you hear him? Patrick asked on his cell phone. Yes, I heard him, replied Captain Albanelli, whose voice boomed out of the car speakers as Patrick switched the call to his Bluetooth. This is Captain Albanelli. Officer Parnell, why is Mr. Turner being ordered out of the car? Me, this is Sergeant Parnell, Sergeant Parnell stammered, losing all bravado. If you can't give me a satisfactory answer to my question, that would be Officer Parnell, snapped Captain Benelli. Robert Bushhold had no qualms about the misfortune that had befallen Sergeant Parnell. Men like Sergeant Parnell were expendable. He had managed to get the county to turn over the maintenance contract to a new company. The loss of revenue hurt Patrick Turner somewhat, but the loss of the account only lasted until the cable network in the courthouse itself failed and the smaller company was unable to fix it. The new company was also unable to retrieve the information from the old storage system, jeopardizing decades of records from 1985 to the present. Jeff, I know it would cause quite a stir if I sent you, Patrick smiled as he negotiated a contract renewal bonus for his company. No, Miss Varney, you heard me. 25,000, or hey, good luck with your system. I've been telling you for years that you need to upgrade. Placing his hand on the mouthpiece of his desk phone, Patrick reminded Jeff to be on his best behavior, even if he happened to run into Judge Robert Bushhold. Then he returned his attention to the county comptroller. The latter refused to budge, even waving at Jeff to leave the office. On April 15th, while many people were frantically trying to finish paperwork and figure out how much to give the IRS, Angel was admitted to Suladu Hospital in Carlton, New Jersey. The little woman underwent a C-section. The obstetrician-gynecologist decided it was the best decision for mother and child. Andrea Michelle Landry Hall, you are the most beautiful baby girl in the world, Jelly announced as she took the red-headed girl in her arms. And you're the prettiest mommy in the world, Belly declared, sobbing, standing next to Jelly's bed. Of course I am, Jeff agreed, wiping away tears of joy. After all, they have the most handsome daddy and grandpa in the world. Huh? Is he coming later? The obstetrician-gynecologist asked, amusement dancing in the lively brown eyes. Oh, it's so cold. So cold, Jeff laughed, taking another picture of his granddaughter on his cell phone. I'm too young to be a grandmother, Jelly's mother Michelle replied to the pictures Jeff sent her on her cell phone. Somehow, Donna had learned of Andrea's birth. Jeff deleted the voice message congratulating her that she had left on his cell phone. Jelly showed her father the beautiful ballerina doll and silver brush and comb that Donna had sent for Andrea. What do you want me to do, Daddy? Jelly asked. Honey, I want you to do what's best for your Andrea. In everything, always, 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 always do what's best for your little girl, said Jeff. I love you so much, Daddy, Jelly stated as she pulled the sleeping infant off her breast. Yes, Belly replied. On October 15th, the day of Andrea's 6-month birthday, Jelly reminded Jeff that his own birthday was coming up. Belly teased Jeff by pointing out all of his gray hairs poking through his short-cropped brown hair. She squeaked, then laughed when Jeff grabbed her hand and bit her finger. Don't worry, Mr. Jeff, Belly said, snuggling up to him. 72 isn't that much. You brat! Jeff laughed, hugging Belly tightly. I'll be 52. 42, not 72. Really? Wow, time has not been very favorable to you, Belly giggled. Oh, that's what it is. You're not my sugar booger anymore. You're now a snotty booger, Jeff announced. Well, seriously, Daddy, what do you want for your birthday? Jelly asked, slapping Belly on the arm for being so disrespectful to her father. Sweet bunny, what could I possibly want? Jeff asked. I have a beautiful daughter. Two. Two beautiful daughters, Belly reminded him. And one snotty daughter, Jeff continued, causing Belly to squeal and Jelly to giggle. Leaving their third-floor apartment, Jeff walked down to his first-floor apartment. Entering the one-bedroom apartment, he hung his light jacket on the antique coat rack next to the front door. Looking around the apartment, Jeff nodded satisfied. Not bad for a bachelor pad, Jeff decided, pulling a Gratchely beer from the refrigerator. A small couch and chair stood in the combined living dining room. A light brown leather sofa and a hunter green velour armchair complemented each other. The freestanding floor lamp in the corner was the color of antique brass and went well with the sofa and chair. The table and 4 chairs in the dining room were light brown wood with antique brass details. Jeff hadn't noticed it when he'd bought the set at the store, but it was Belly who had noted that the table, chairs, and floor lamp matched the 2 rooms perfectly. The kitchen was small, barely functional, but since he cooked mostly for one, it was appropriate. When he'd moved in, Jeff had thought Donna would have immediately given up the apartment just because of the kitchen. The bathroom was also paltry. There was barely enough room to turn around in the cramped room. But since Jeff used the room for the bare essentials, that was fine with him. He wasn't going to take a bubble bath, do his makeup, or style his hair. The first bedroom, in Jeff's opinion, was more suited to the role of a large closet. He bought a crib, changing table, and matching toy box at a garage sale. There was a playpen in the closet. Jeff figured he would need it sooner rather than later when Andrea turned 6 months old. In his own bedroom was a double bed with a Tempur-Pedic mattress. Patrick Turner, his boss and friend, accused Jeff of liking plush and comfortable beds. Jeff asked Patrick what he himself and his boys slept on. Along the north and east walls were a tall dresser and a low dresser with a mirror. The nightstand was the perfect size for the bed against the south wall. An inch wider and the nightstand would have gotten in the way of opening the closet door. The rent was a little high, but since he was only a few steps away from his daughter and granddaughter, Jeff didn't mind paying the rent each month, dutifully, on the first day of the month. He smiled as he remembered that he had 2 daughters and a granddaughter. And, being right on the stairs, Jeff was an indispensable babysitter when Jelly and Belly needed to run an errand, do some shopping, or even go on a date. On a date, Jeff snorted. In the girl's mind, a date consisted of going to Wally's Pizza around the corner and buying a large Wally's Harfbanger pizza. Then the duo would head to the arcade next door, or across the street to the Garden State bowling alley. Then, hand in hand, flushed with happiness, they'd return, pick up Andrea, and drive to their home. Yeah, Jeff said, draining a can of beer. Kind of like a date, but they're happy. Sitting down on the bed, Jeff brought the empty can to his lips. Realizing the can was empty, Jeff set it on the nightstand. He sat like that for a long time, just looking and seeing nothing. On October 31st, Patrick decided that Halloween was the perfect date for Jeff's birthday. After all, Jeff was undoubtedly a horror. Roses are red, cucumbers are green, you don't need a mask even though it's Halloween, Patrick declared as he handed Jeff a $50 gift card for Wally's Pizza. Roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet. What the hell happened to you? Jeff said, then thanked Patrick for the gift card. Jelly and Belly will love it, that's for sure, Jeff thought as he tucked the card away in his wallet. During lunch, Belly sent a text asking if she could bring a friend to a special dinner she and Jelly were making for his birthday. Jeff pondered the question, but agreed that Belly could certainly bring a friend. It better not be Donna, Jeff thought suddenly, when Belly sent a series of emojis with kisses and birthday cake. Belly worked at Dependable Commercial and Residential Cleaners. The Dependable office was in the same building as the First National Bank of Commonstead, where Donna was the executive assistant to Beverly Hollister, the branch manager. From time to time, Belly crossed paths with Donna and told Jeff about these encounters. She looks kind of rude, was usually Belly's first remark. She was asking about you. The toner cartridge was ripped out of Jeff's hands in the office of his latest client. His shirt was completely lost, as were his khakis. His work boots were running low, so Jeff wasn't too upset about them. But it meant he'd have to call Jelly and let her know he needed to get cleaned up before he could make it to the holiday dinner. "Okay, Daddy. I'll see you soon," Jelly said cheerfully. "But he's coming, isn't he?" Jeff heard Belly's insistence and prayed again that this friend wouldn't turn out to be Donna. In the morning, Donna called him, obviously from her work phone. Jeff answered, figuring it was probably a new client. Ever since they had defeated the company Robert Bushell had used to take out Patrick Turner, their business had nearly doubled. "Happy birthday to you," Donna purred, trying rather unsuccessfully to imitate Marilyn Monroe. "Thank you, Donna," Jeff replied and ended the phone call. Relatively clean, it would take an industrial cleaner to wash the ink off his hands. Jeff went up to his daughter's apartment. As he knocked on the door, he heard 3 squeals and smiled as he heard sounds of youthful glee and happiness on the other side of the door. "He's here! Andrea, the birthday boy is here!" Jeff heard Jelly's voice as Belly swung the door open. "Hi, sweet goat," Jeff smiled as he kissed the pretty blonde. "I thought I was Snotty Potty," Belly insisted. "Hi, you must be Belly's friend," Jeff said to a very pretty red-headed girl, sitting at a small table in the dining room. "Daddy, this is Sydney. Belly introduced. "And guess what? It's her birthday today, too." Looking into the girl's eyes, Jeff felt a small spark. Shaking the girl's warm, soft hand, Jeff thought it must be static electricity. He stared into her caramel brown eyes for a long moment before letting go of her small hand. "Yeah, Mom's in Trenton at some symposium, and Dad swears he's in Vancouver on business and there's no way he can get away," Sydney smiled. "Arabelle, Belly said I just have to come. You'll have chicken and sausage gumbo and—" "Is that what I smell like?" Jeff exclaimed. "Oh, and happy birthday. Sorry, I didn't know, so I didn't get you a card." "You can give it tomorrow," suggested Belly. "Hi, Daddy," Jelly smiled proudly from the stove. "Honey Bunny, when did you learn how to make roux?" Jeff asked. "God, it smells fantastic." I... It... It's really from a jar," admitted Jelly. "Mom sent it over a couple weeks ago when I told her I wanted to make you some gumbo." "Very nice of her," Jeff said, slightly surprised by his ex-wife's gesture. Back in the living dining room, Jeff greeted his granddaughter. Andrea bestowed him with a 2-toothed grin from her playpen. Then Jeff returned his attention to Sydney Poor. She was a redhead with pale skin and a scattering of freckles. "Miss Michelle even sent Crystal's hot sauce," Belly informed him, placing a large bottle of delicious hot sauce on the table. "Yes, ma'am," Jeff cheered. "Happy birthday to me." Jeff was served first, although he insisted that Sydney should be served first. She was served her second serving and waited while Jelly and Belly took their bowls. There were small bowls of potato salad next to each. Before sitting down at the table, Jelly placed 2 packs of saltine crackers on the table. Jeff tasted the gumbo, then picked up a bottle of hot sauce. Sydney gingerly tasted the dish, then goggled at Jeff. How can you put more hot sauce in here?" Sydney asked. "He's a Cajun," shrugged Belly. "And that gives him a cast-iron stomach?" Sydney asked. While they ate, Jeff learned that the 22-year-old redhead was Walden Donaldson's executive assistant. She'd been working at King Sanitation and Disposal since she'd gotten her certification at Suladu County Votech, first as a secretary and then moving to the executive director's office. No, have a seat. I know where the kitchen is," Sydney said when she needed a glass of ice water. "Well, isn't she adorable?" Belly whispered urgently, turning to Jeff. "Yes, she's very pretty. And young," replied Jeff. "Too young for me." "Geez, Belly, she's the same age as you and Jelly." "Yes? And?" Jelly whispered. "She's a couple years older," objected Belly. "Are you guys talking about me?" Sydney asked, walking back to the dinner table. "I'm sorry. I know you like strong iced tea, but you can paint walls with that tea." "Daddy thinks he's too old for you," Jelly declared. Sydney looked up from her bowl of gumbo. Jeff flashed brightly when the red-headed beauty looked him in the eye. Her cheerful smile exposed perfect white teeth. "Well, Belly said you're old. Really old. Like you're 72 or something," Sydney said. "Sydney," Belly squealed with laughter. "You are. You're definitely Snotty Potty," Jeff said to Belly. But you look pretty good for a 70-year-old man, said Sydney, washing down her food with another gulp of ice water. Oh, gosh, thanks, I think so, Jeff laughed. Finished with their food, Jelly and Belly hurried into the kitchen. A few minutes later, they began singing Happy Birthday, carrying a store-bought cake from the kitchen. Jeff laughed when he saw the candles with the numbers 7 and 2 burning on the cake. After the cake and ice cream, Sydney hugged Jelly and Belly. She thanked them for the invitation and for making her 22nd birthday memorable. Bye, Jeff, Sydney said, looking with big eyes into his eyes. I hope to see you again. Oh, no, ma'am. I'll walk you to your car, Jeff insisted. It's a nice neighborhood, but still, a beautiful woman shouldn't be walking alone after dark. Oh, a southern gentleman, exclaimed Sydney enthusiastically, hugging Jeff's arm. I hope I shall see you again, repeated Sydney. Yeah, Jeff said as he pulled out of the parking lot. The next morning at work, Patrick asked Jeff how his birthday was. Jeff paused, wiping the ink off his skin, and gave Patrick a strained smile. You know what? I feel cheap and used, Jeff said. Huh? Dude, what? What's wrong? Patrick asked, genuinely concerned. What's that? Man, I don't even know what's wrong with my right arm. I just want to get this over with as soon as possible so I can get back to picking my nose or scratching my ass. Jeff hung his head. I mean, it took what could have been a great moment, and... Geez, man, for a minute there I thought you were serious, Patrick laughed. In between calls, Jeff stopped and bought a greeting card. At the local Ichabod's grocer's store, he found a beautiful flower arrangement in a very nice vase. Then, on his lunch break, he stopped by the King Sanities and Disposals building. Oh, who's that for? Asked a stunning blonde ready to bestow upon any lucky man. Delivery for Sydney Poor, Jeff replied stammering, suddenly feeling more than foolish. Oh, how wonderful, the girl said and walked over to Sydney's desk. Yes, Miss Poor, the flowers are for you. No, I'm not kidding. Sydney, why would I be joking? A moment later, the elevator doors rang and Sydney entered the lobby. Jeff thought she looked mature and confident in her business attire. A small jacket with three-quarter sleeves and a dark blue knee-length skirt with a light gray-white striped blouse. Her mature, calm, confident aura disappeared as she rushed toward Jeff with a squeal. Oh, Jeff, you shouldn't have done that, Sydney exclaimed. Sydney, shh, he should give you flowers. Are you crazy? Advised the secretary. Evelyn, hush, said Sydney. Jeff, this is Evelyn. She got my old job after I moved to Mr. Donaldson's office. Evelyn, this is Jeff Landry, my boyfriend. Have you had lunch yet? There's a lunchroom upstairs. You can get a wrap or salad there. I mean, most people bring their own, but... Sydney pulled Jeff toward the elevator. God, I can't believe it. You haven't even forgotten that blue is my favorite color. Sydney marveled as they went up to her floor. Let me put them on my desk and then we'll go to lunch. Oh. I couldn't believe it. You really shouldn't have done that. But I'm glad I did, Jeff thought to himself. And no, I didn't remember that blue is your favorite color. Jeff smiled as he watched Sydney find the perfect spot for her flowers. Just a very lucky accident. In the cafeteria, Jeff got a green salad and a turkey wrap. Sydney got the chef's salad, and they found a table to sit down and enjoy their lunch. A smiling man approached them. I noticed the uniform shirt. Walden Donaldson smiled. When will you finish your lunch? Take your time, but when you finish lunch, come see me. I want to see what Turner can do for us here. I recognize that accent. I'd recognize it anywhere. Where are you from? Jeff asked. From a small place. I bet you've never heard of it. Walden smiled broadly, also recognizing Jeff's accent. DeGarde, Louisiana. Oh no, we haven't heard of it, Jeff sighed. Neither have I. Where did you go to school? Out. Walden laughed a genuine happy laugh. If you find yourself here, stop by, you hear? Back in the office, Jeff casually informed Patrick that they were in line for a service contract with King Sanitation. Patrick snorted incredulously. Have you been having fun with that son of a bitch? I've been trying to get them for the last 3 years, Patrick scoffed. I almost succeeded. What was that guy's name? Brian. No, Brian. Bryce. Bryce Adams. But then they kicked him out of there. No. I told him you'd entertain him, Jeff smiled. With a $50 gift card to Wally's Pizza burning a hole in their wallet, Jelly and Belly couldn't wait to go on their date. So Jeff got a playpen and set it up in the living room. Warming up the remaining gumbo, Jeff sat down at the table and began to enjoy the delicious meal, the perfect ending to what had been a really good day. Okay, this Friday? No, I won't be able to babysit my granddaughter, Jeff told the two girls as they came to get Andrea. I have a date. Thanks a lot, Belly, Jelly rebuked playfully. Whatever you say, Belly smiled, slinging her diaper bag over her shoulder. Ready? Jeff and Sydney went to a Chinese restaurant for dinner, and Jeff impressed Sydney with how easily he used chopsticks. Then they went to a local corn maze, followed by a hayride, and ended the walk with a mug of hot chocolate by a roaring fire. Saturday night, Sydney took Jeff to a laser art exhibit. Jeff enjoyed the spectacle, but the hard techno music was too loud and, frankly, unnecessary for his taste. During the week, Jeff managed to keep an eye on his granddaughter. He was attentive to the infant, even as one text message after another popped up on his cell phone. But suddenly Friday and Saturday were busy. Jelly complained good-naturedly, and Belly puffed up with smugness. The Saturday before Thanksgiving, Jeff and Sydney were at an Italian restaurant in Carlton. They had planned to go to a nearby nightclub. Sydney wanted to dance and knew the drummer of one of the cover bands. Jeff said suddenly, looking toward the restaurant door. Problem? Sydney asked, looking up from her Caesar salad. Oh, no, said Jeff. Then why did you say like that? Sydney nudged him, watching the hostess lead two people to a table nearby. This is Donna, my ex-wife, Jeff admitted, looking at a very gaunt Donna Busheld and Seamus McCullen, her high school boyfriend. Jeff knew that Deborah, Donna's mother, approved of Seamus. She had said so more than once in Jeff's presence. Deborah had also hung a picture of Seamus and Donna from the prom in a place of honor on the mantelpiece. Jeff didn't know where Deborah Busheld had put the picture from Donna and Jeff's wedding. More than once at dinner, Deborah told Donna about Seamus's latest accomplishments. She's beautiful, Sydney said, looking at the blonde hair and expensive clothes. Sydney, she looks emaciated, Jeff said. Jeff noticed the bags under Donna's eyes. The makeup hid them well, but Jeff knew his ex-wife too well not to notice them. Jeff also noticed that Donna had lost a lot of weight. The skin on her face had tightened, and although she was smiling as she looked at a grinning, posing Seamus McCullen, Jeff noticed that the smile didn't reach Donna's eyes. Shaking his head, Jeff returned his attention to the Caesar salad. Do you want to leave? Sydney asked. What, and skip the sausage and linguine you've been talking about so much? Jeff asked, as the waitress took their plates of salad away. Skip, Sydney hummed. Run, all about how this is the best sausage and linguine I've ever had. I could never eat anything else in my life, Jeff teased. Shut up, I didn't say anything like that to Jeffrey Andrew Landry, Sydney protested, laughing. After a really good meal, Jeff paid the bill and helped Sydney up from her seat. As he turned to give Sydney his hand, Jeff heard a loud sigh. Looking around, Jeff saw Donna's haggard face looking up at him. Jeff saw her eyes fill with tears as he held Sydney's hand in his. The cover band was a good band, with a good singer. They would never get a recording contract, but they could pay their bills by performing at gigs like this. Jeff and Sydney danced while the band played. When they left for a break, Sydney pulled Jeff backstage. Rowdy smiled and didn't try to stop Sydney. Even as he talked and joked with the musicians, Jeff was haunted by his ex-wife's anguish. When the band called a break again, Sydney said it was time for them to leave. Snuggling up to him as they walked to his pickup truck, Sydney unobtrusively asked Jeff if his apartment was clean. What do you care? You won't see it in the dark, Jeff replied, as his brain heard her words and their meaning. I'm not calling a dirty bathroom, Sydney protested. Sweetheart, Sydney, my apartment is clean, Jeff assured her as he helped her into his truck. Remember, I'm sitting with my granddaughter in this apartment. It's clean. While Jeff tried not to think about the rules of the road, Robert Busheld could feel his hatred for Jeffrey Andrew Landry rekindling inside him. After months of therapy that Robert Busheld was ashamed to even think about, his daughter seemed to finally emerge from her cocoon of self-punishment. She even agreed to go on a date with Seamus McCullen. And just to make sure of that, her ex-husband showed up at her door. According to Seamus, Jeff was there with a red-haired tramp who didn't look old enough to drink the wine they consumed during dinner. None of the cell phone photos of Jeff and his companion that Seamus took with his cell phone showed the woman's face. Robert had to agree. The dress was too short to be decent. The clothes she was wearing were expensive, and Robert recognized the Rolex watch on the girl's right wrist. From that little fact, he concluded that the red-haired tramp really did have money, or at least knew how to extort expensive trinkets from her men. While Robert poured himself a few more sips of whiskey, Jeff helped Sydney out of the cab of his pickup truck. She bestowed a kiss on him and then walked him to the door of his apartment. "I bet you don't have a cloth-covered clothes rack," Sydney muttered as she entered his dimly lit apartment. "And this dress is cashmere." "Yes, it is," Jeff said, closing his apartment door behind them. "Jelly and Belly got me this one. Really disgusting." Jelly and Belly gave Jeff Christmas sweaters. One was for those holiday moments when he was in the mood to wear an ugly Christmas sweater. The other sweater was a dark crimson color with a big white snowflake on the front. Both sweaters came with cloth hangers, and later, Jeff and Cindy got down to it. When Jeff came to, it was still dark outside. Glancing at his watch, Jeff realized it was 12 minutes past 6. After a quick breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, Sydney got ready to leave the apartment. Jeff was dressed only in a long-sleeve t-shirt, jeans, and leather loafers as he went outside to walk her to her car. Once outside, Jeff suddenly found himself pressed against a brick wall facing forward by two men. Sydney cried out in surprise, and Jeff snickered. "Let him go! I've got a gun," Sydney ordered. "Screw you, sis," one of the men growled and threw a punch to Jeff's right. The rumble was deafening. The man who had punched Jeff in the kidneys fell on his back. The second man let go of Jeff and turned around, reaching for his waistband. He saw the barrel of Sydney's .357 caliber pistol pointed directly at his face. "Look, lady, just give us," the man growled. "So lie down, on your stomach, cross your ankles, put your fingers behind your head," Sydney ordered. "Just let us go and," the man growled. "I'll count to 2, Sydney warned. 1. "Bitch, you'll be sorry," the man hissed, following her orders. "No, officer, you'll be sorry. You know what they do to cops in prison, don't you?" Sydney said, calling Captain Begnelli's direct line. "Hello, Uncle Al. I have 2 of your finest. One will need an ambulance." "Lady, you're going to get in the shit," Officer Parnell advised, listening to Sydney's conversation. Next to him, Jeff was kneeling on the sidewalk, still trying to catch his breath. Officer Parnell decided to pull his off-duty .32 caliber pistol from his waistband. The bullet lodged in his hand. Officer Parnell lost consciousness. "Hey, Parnell," Captain Al Begnelli smiled broadly as the former police officer regained consciousness at Suladu County Hospital. "I want a lawyer," the handcuffed man declared. 9 hours later, as Judge Robert Busheld executed a perfect 124-yard shot on the 7th hole, a difficult dogleg, a police cruiser swept across the golf course and stopped less than a yard from the astonished man. Seamus McCullen, his father, Angus McCullen, and Angus's business partner stood with their mouths open in shock. "Robert Busheld, you're under arrest," Lieutenant David Poore said as he stepped out of the car. "He's here. They're here." Jeff couldn't keep from laughing as he heard Sydney's enthusiastic squeal from inside the huge structure. "Jeff, Mom, this is Jeff," Sydney exclaimed as she introduced Jeff to Judge Shirley Howard. "This is Jeff Landry." "We've met, but I'm sure she doesn't remember me," Jeff smirked, extending his hand to shake the elegantly dressed woman's. "Oh, I remember you," Shirley purred. "I remember you perfectly. That jerk Robert Bushcold nearly froze my ear off yelling about a divorce." "Yeah, sorry about that," Jeff said. "And these are my daughters." "And then you turned my little girl into Annie Oakley?" Shirley continued and then gasped, looking at the stroller. Oh, who's that? Who's that little angel?" "Jelly and Belly. And this is their daughter Andrea." Jeff smiled proudly as he watched Judge Shirley Howard kneel on the floor and coo over the slowly recovering Andrea. James Poore was much older than Judge Howard, but even though James was 79 years old, you could read intelligence in Jeff's gray eyes. He also had a firm handshake. "Glad you're here, Jeff. May I call you Jeff?" said James in a firm voice. "Our house would be completely empty. My eldest Jimmy is serving at the Pentagon. No, we can't talk about what he does there, but he wouldn't be able to join us. And David could show up, but he's a senior officer on duty." "And God only knows where Samuel is now," Shirley said, as she led Andrea over to James. "Look at her. Isn't she adorable?" "Well, look at this. My goodness, look at that red hair," James cooed, looking at the smiling little girl. What a gorgeous girl you are. Daddy likes redheads, Sydney whispered loudly, pointing to her mother's red hair. Judge Shirley passed the bar exam and began practicing under the name Shirley Howard. And even after she met and married James Samuel Poor, she kept her maiden name. Professionally, I'm known as Judge Shirley Howard, she smiled. But everywhere else, I'm known as Shirley Poor. The happiest woman in all of New Jersey, James declared with a twinkle in his gray eyes. The most? Jelly began to ask. Because she's married to me, James said, smiling broadly. How those eyes haven't turned brown yet is a mystery to me, Shirley smirked, shaking her head. You're just full of shit. So over the Thanksgiving break, more and more of Sydney's clothes and other belongings had migrated from her house to Jeff's apartment. And by the third morning when they woke up together, Jeff had discovered one crack in Sydney's perfect facade. Sydney could barely manage to boil water. Even scrambling eggs was beyond her capabilities. And when will I ever learn? Sydney laughed. Sydney laughed embarrassedly. Not that Consuelo was going to teach me. Back at work the Monday after Thanksgiving, Jeff walked into Patrick's office. Patrick waved a stack of papers at Jeff. What the hell, Landry? Tired of being a worthless repairman? Patrick accused. You think you're a salesman now? What? What are you talking about? Jeff asked. And what the hell is this shit? Half-assed? I'm your best. Somehow, we just got James Poor's investment group account, including all of his rental properties. And James Poor only does commercial leases, so we're talking about equipment, not little washers, dryers, refrigerators, and… Oh, hey, you! Do you know your way around refrigerators? Patrick perked up, waving the stack of papers again. No, I don't. But what does that have to do with me? Jeff said. Oh, come on. Like you don't know who James Poor is? Patrick scoffed. Well, yeah, I do. Jeff agreed. Yeah, and by the way, good for you for putting that asshole Judge Bushel behind bars. Christmas fell on a Monday. On December 18th, the Monday before Christmas, Jeff made an unscheduled stop at the J.S. Poor building. The well-preserved assistant manager did not let Jeff at her desk. She slowly, methodically typed in information, then forced Jeff's heels down on the soft leather couch as she continued to type on the keyboard. Finally, she picked up the phone and quietly muttered a few words. Jeff almost laughed when the assistant's cold, indifferent blue eyes suddenly widened and her posture straightened. She muttered something else, then put the phone back on the stand. Excuse me, Mr. Landry. He asked you to come in, the woman said, rising to her feet and heading for the large wooden door behind her desk. Would you like some coffee, Mr. Landry? Some tea? Water? Coffee, 2 creams, no sugar. Jeff smirked as he walked past her into James Poor's large office. Let me guess. Frida's got you twiddling your thumbs, James laughed, going around the desk to shake Jeff's hand. Yes, sir, pretty much, Jeff agreed, extending a firm handshake to James. Don't worry. She'll offer to spin them for you next time you come over, James smiled, taking a seat on the front edge of the table. So what brings you to these parts? The coffee was as good as anything Jeff had drunk since moving from Diard to Commonstead. Nothing could compare to the rich coffee his grandmother used to make in her old, battered cast-iron coffee pot. Jeff's mother used a French press, and it was almost as good as Mears coffee. A French press? I'd like to try it, James admitted. But Jeff, did you really come here to talk about coffee? No, sir, Jeff smiled, and then got to the point of his visit. Even though Sydney was a Baptist, but not a practicing Baptist, she had attended midnight mass at St. John the Baptist Catholic Church on Christmas Eve with Jeff, Jelly, Belly, and Andrea. She marveled at the celebration and sang along with the children's choir. Jeff smiled as he discovered another flaw in his beauty. Sydney wouldn't be able to carry a tune in a bucket, but she smiled happily as she sang along to it. As Jelly and Belly carried Andrea, the diaper bag and stroller up the stairs 2 flights to their 3rd-floor apartment, Jeff kissed Sydney goodbye. She was on her way to her parents' house to welcome Christmas morning at home. I'll see you at lunch, Sydney needlessly reminded Jeff as she got into the car. In the morning, the only cloud in the crisp, cold Christmas morning was a tearful voicemail message from Donna's new cell phone number. Belly informed Jeff that a new executive assistant was sitting at Miss Hollister's desk at the bank downstairs. She didn't know what had happened to Donna. She had been there one morning, sitting at the desk. Donna even smiled at Belly and waved at her when Belly walked into the bank to get her paycheck. The next time Belly walked into the lobby of the bank, there was no one behind the counter. And a few days later, a new face sat behind the counter. Donna only managed to say Mary Cree 3 times before she broke into sobs. Jeff deleted the remaining 3 minutes and 14 seconds of voicemail without listening to her. Then he blocked the new phone number. Yes, Donna. Merry Christmas, Jeff thought, as he pushed aside Sydney's creams, lotions, hairpins, and rubber bands to find his can of shaving cream buried under the debris. Sydney had put all of Jelly, Belly, and Andrea's gifts in the trunk of her car when she left for her parents' house at 1 hour and 48 minutes past 1 in the morning. So Jeff managed to make a dog face when he told Jelly and Belly that he didn't have any presents for them. He did, however, have a few gifts for Andrea, some very cute outfits. Jelly put a cute Christmas sweater on Andrea and pulled matching pants over the baby girl's bulky diaper. Then the family made their way down the stairs. Jeff was alert for possible trouble. The recent attack was still fresh in his mind. Shirley and James had gone a little overboard with gifts for Andrea. Lieutenant David Poor stroked his wife's belly and wondered if Shirley and James were going to spoil little Sarah when she came into the world. Maybe, James teased. Oh, I'm sure we'll get her something, Shirley snorted, and David and his wife Elizabeth smiled broadly. Well, this is it, James said as he opened the last present. Thank you so much for my new coat, Belly said. Yes, they're lovely, Jelly agreed, as she continued fiddling with the buttons and running her hands over the soft faux fur lining of her knee-length winter coat. And thanks for my French press coffee pot, James said to Jeff. Look, just look. He'll try it once, decide it's too hard, and Shirley prophesied. Consuela will love it, I'm sure, David suggested. Yeah, James sighed, looking at the 7 boxes still under the Christmas tree. The small tags had Samuel's name written on them in his mother's loving handwriting. Jeff knew there was some story behind the colorfully wrapped presents, but he didn't see fit to ask about it. Maybe he's coming, Shirley tried to suggest. Maybe, Elizabeth said, squeezing her mother-in-law's hand. If all goes well, Jeff said after a long silence. Yeah? Shirley asked, lifting her gaze from the floor. Sydney, said Jeff, trying to pull an unyielding box from the pocket of his wool pants. Oh God, yes, Sydney said, kissing Jeff fervently. Wait a minute, James smiled. He hasn't asked you anything yet. How do you know what he's going to say? Because I asked Santa Claus to, Sydney giggled as she tried to help Jeff pull the resisting box out of his uncooperative pants pocket. Sydney, would you mind? Jeff asked again when he finally managed to pull the box out of his pocket. I already said yes, honey, Sydney replied and kissed him again. Damn, that's beautiful, David approved as he saw the white gold ring with 2 small diamonds flanked by a large diamond. Oh, Sydney, it's beautiful, Elizabeth marveled. Because you asked Santa Claus? James grinned, looking at his 22-year-old daughter. Yes, after all these years, you're not going to tell me Santa Claus isn't real, are you? Sydney said, wiping away happy tears. No, I guess not, replied James. Turning his head, James saw Shirley looking at the presents left under the Christmas tree. Sighing, he stood up. I think we should drink to that, James said. Shirley, is there any eggnog left? Of course there is. Who always buys a gallon of that drink every year? Shirley said, rising to her feet as well. And every year? Hush, woman, James smiled. The wedding took place in May, on a beautiful Saturday. The minister at Redemption Baptist Church wasn't thrilled about their wedding. Jeff was Catholic, and the Poor family hadn't attended his church in years. But a few dollars in the treasury changed his mind, and he had a truly beautiful service. Patrick Turner, who acted as Jeff's best man, remarked that Sydney was doing very well for a blind woman. Jeff shifted his gaze from the back of the church to Patrick. What, she's not blind? Jeff said as the music started up, and Sydney, holding onto her father's hand, stepped out onto the walkway. Wait a minute. You mean she can see? And she's still willing to marry you? Patrick asked incredulously. You're just a huge asshole, Jeff laughed. She has a sister? I don't care if they're crazy. Hell, crazy is good, said Patrick. Couple of cousins, Jeff nodded his head toward Captain Al Benelli and his wife Francine Benelli, formerly Francine Howard, sitting with their 5 daughters. Of course, their daddy's a cop, so you'll have to clean up your act. The tall one's pretty cute, Patrick offered. 2 months after Sydney's wedding to Jeff, Sydney, Shirley, Aunt Francine, and her three cousins, along with Jelly and Belly, were having lunch at the Marble Country Club. Jeff, James, Uncle Al, and David were out riding golf carts kicking little white balls. Andrea was with the men. She didn't want to leave Daddy. The crab salad is delicious, Sydney enthused as she swallowed her food. Sydney, yesterday was 2 months, Shirley said. I know, Sydney exclaimed happily. Can you believe it? No, I really can't believe that this little doll you got is only 2 months old, said Shirley, keeping her gaze on her daughter. Oops, Sydney allowed herself a guilty giggle. So how are you doing? How old are you now? Cousin Debbie asked. About 4 months, admitted Sydney. We think he or she is going to be a Christmas baby. There was a great rumble of thunder. Jelly, Belly, and Sydney turned and saw the waitress looking at them with an expression of horror on her gaunt face. Jelly was the first to recognize the gaunt woman. Donna, Jelly asked. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and watch for the next video.